212 members of the United States Congress have now placed their names on a formal impeachment resolution targeting Donald J. Trump, and what is unfolding in Washington right now is not political theater, not symbolic protest, and not another short-lived headline engineered to dominate cable news for a single news cycle. This is the third impeachment effort in 6 years, but insiders from inside the House Judiciary Committee are warning that this time is fundamentally different. They are using words that do not get thrown around lightly in Washington. Words like irreversible, catastrophic, and system-breaking. According to multiple congressional sources, lawmakers are now sitting on documentation described as so direct, so explicit, and so difficult to reinterpret that it is already fracturing long-standing alliances inside both parties. When nearly half of the entire House of Representatives signs onto an impeachment resolution in less than 3 days, that is not debate. That is detonation. And what triggered this move is already being compared, in private conversations, to the most dangerous political moment since Watergate. Think about that. This is not a slow-burn scandal. This is an eruption. And before we even begin to unpack how we got here, pause for a second and ask yourself this question. When was the last time you saw Washington move this fast against a sitting president? Nowhere in modern American history has momentum shifted this violently in such a compressed time frame. That alone should tell you something has cracked beneath the surface. And if you want to understand what is coming next, this is the moment to lean in. Because what investigators uncovered has ignited open hostility between branches of government, split the Republican Party down the middle, and pushed the constitutional order to the edge of a cliff. According to multiple briefings shared with congressional leadership in early January 2026, a classified intelligence session revealed evidence suggesting coordination between the administration and foreign financial interests during periods when federal investigations were actively underway. These were not routine diplomatic interactions. These were not arm's-length communications. Documents reportedly show what appear to be direct channels between White House-linked officials and overseas banking entities at moments when the Department of Justice was making enforcement decisions tied to sensitive financial cases. Constitutional scholars reviewing the allegations are issuing warnings in unusually blunt language. If proven, this could constitute a direct violation of the presidential oath of office, not a gray area, not a policy disagreement, a breach that strikes at the core of executive accountability. And here is where the story stops being partisan and starts becoming radioactive. This impeachment push is not being driven exclusively by Democrats. Dozens of Republicans, including senior committee members who defended Trump through years of scandals, investigations, and legal battles, have now broken ranks. When lawmakers who survived primaries by standing shoulder to shoulder with Trump suddenly step forward and attach their names to impeachment paperwork, it signals one thing only. The evidence has crossed a threshold where loyalty can no longer shield them. For months leading into January 2026, tensions between the White House and Congress had been escalating quietly but relentlessly. Executive actions lawmakers described as unilateral power grabs, nomination battles that turned into scorched earth warfare, intelligence briefings raising alarms about foreign financial entanglements flagged as early as the fall. But everything snapped when a whistleblower from the Treasury Department delivered a massive evidence package to House investigators. 847 pages of transaction records, internal communications, and enforcement timelines. Career officials who reviewed the material inside secure congressional facilities described a pattern that could not be dismissed as coincidence. Enforcement actions paused, investigations stalled, and financial movements that appeared to align with those pauses flowing through accounts connected to individuals tied to administration allies. The timing was too precise, the overlaps too consistent, and lawmakers who reviewed the material reportedly understood immediately what it implied. If federal enforcement was being deliberately slowed or redirected while foreign-linked financial activity continued unchecked, this was no longer a political dispute. This was a power struggle over the rule of law itself. Midway through this story, let me ask you directly. If evidence shows federal investigations were halted to protect powerful interests, do you believe Congress has a moral obligation to act regardless of party? Drop your thoughts below, because this question sits at the heart of everything unfolding right now. The turning point came during an emergency closed-door session of the House Judiciary Committee held inside a secure facility beneath the Capitol complex in early January 2026. This was not a routine briefing. Phones were confiscated, security protocols were elevated. Members entered expecting a standard intelligence update. What they encountered instead, according to multiple eyewitnesses, left even veteran lawmakers visibly shaken. One figure in particular became the symbol of the moment. Representative Gerald Whitmore, a Republican committee chairman from Ohio and longtime Trump defender, exited the session pale and silent. He did not engage reporters. He did not spin. He did not deflect. Within hours, his name appeared on the impeachment resolution. That single act sent shockwaves through the Republican caucus. When a chairman breaks ranks, the dam has already failed. The most chilling testimony reportedly came from Deputy Treasury Secretary Margaret Collins, who confirmed under oath that career analysts had flagged suspicious financial patterns months earlier. Those findings, she testified, were never escalated. They were frozen. Analysts were instructed to stand down. Reports were sealed. When asked who issued the order, Collins refused to answer, citing classified national security communications and instructions issued above her authority. The room reportedly went silent, because that answer, or lack of one, reframed everything. If obstruction of a federal investigation had been classified as a national security matter, then the machinery of secrecy had been weaponized to shield potential wrongdoing. This is obstruction wrapped in the flag of national security, one senior lawmaker reportedly said after the session, a phrase that leaked within hours and spread like wildfire across Capitol Hill. History offers a brutal parallel. Richard Nixon was not undone by the burglary at Watergate. He was undone by the cover-up, by the manipulation of institutions meant to protect the public, and by the moment his own party realized defending him meant destroying itself. Today's crisis carries the same structural warning signs, but with a modern twist. Financial systems are more complex. Classification powers broader. The potential damage deeper. Unlike previous impeachment efforts, this one is built not on testimony alone, but on bank records, internal directives, and sworn statements from career officials who risk everything by speaking out. This time, 47 Republicans signed on within hours of reviewing the evidence. That number alone demolishes the assumption that party loyalty would hold no matter what. Markets reacted immediately. International observers began openly questioning the stability of American governance. Career officials across Treasury and Justice reportedly began preserving records, consulting attorneys, and preparing for subpoenas. When institutions sense collapse, self-preservation becomes instinct. The White House now faces an impossible dilemma: defend the president aggressively and alienate constitutional moderates, or concede ground and fracture the base that sustains political survival. The response so far has been predictable. Claims of witch hunts, accusations of deep state conspiracies, public attacks on Republican defectors branded as traitors. But the evidence driving this crisis does not come from partisan activists. It comes from bank records, from internal enforcement logs, from testimony delivered under oath by administration officials themselves. If this is all fabricated, then why classify the decision-making process? If there is nothing to hide, why silence career analysts? If this is political warfare, why are committee chairmen breaking ranks? Legal experts across the ideological spectrum are now openly describing the situation as a constitutional crisis unfolding in real time, not because of partisan outrage or political theater, but because of the dangerous precedent now being tested at the highest level of government. The core concern is stark and unsettling. If a sitting president can unilaterally halt or redirect federal investigations and then shield those actions behind the wall of national security classification, executive power ceases to have any meaningful constraint and becomes, for all practical purposes, untouchable. Former Attorney General Eric Holder has warned publicly that a failure to respond decisively under these circumstances would represent more than a political misstep. It would signal a fundamental collapse of equal justice under the law, eroding the principle that no individual, regardless of office, stands above legal accountability. Senator Mitt Romney has reinforced that alarm, stating that classified material reviewed by lawmakers should deeply trouble every American who still believes in constitutional government, emphasizing that the oath of office binds officials to the Constitution itself, not to any single leader or party. Behind closed doors, the gravity of this moment is reportedly producing near panic within Republican leadership circles, where unity has fractured into competing survival strategies. One faction is demanding absolute defense of the president, arguing that any concession would embolden political adversaries and permanently weaken executive authority, while another faction is warning that protecting conduct perceived as indefensible could irreparably damage the party's credibility for an entire generation. The result is no longer quiet disagreement, but open internal rupture, as strategy sessions devolve into confrontations and long-standing alliances buckle under the weight of the evidence. At the same time, Trump's most loyal supporters are directing intense fury toward Republicans who signed on to the impeachment resolution, openly threatening primary challenges, branding them traitors, and fueling an internal political war that has reached a level of hostility rarely seen in modern American politics. This is the landscape now confronting the country. 212 lawmakers have publicly placed their careers and political futures on the line, 47 of them Republicans who have crossed a once unthinkable line. While evidence continues to accumulate in the form of financial records, sworn testimony, and classified directives that investigators say cannot be ignored. Public hearings are expected in the immediate days ahead, subpoenas are already being drafted and coordinated, sweeping claims of executive privilege are looming, and the nation is watching a single question play out with unprecedented intensity and consequence. Does accountability still exist at the highest level of power, or are we witnessing the moment when constitutional limits finally give way under the pressure of unchecked authority? Before you scroll away, let me ask you one final question. If this evidence is as strong as lawmakers say it is, should party loyalty ever override constitutional duty? Or are we witnessing the moment where the system finally decides whether it still works? This is no longer just about Donald Trump. This is about whether any president can place themselves above the law and dare Congress to stop them. The documents exist. The resolution is signed. The clock is ticking. What happens next will define the limits of power in America for decades to come.